Tributes have been paid, are pouring in for 5 people, those who were on board and are believed to be dead, instantly killed in a catastrophic implosion of the Titan submersible during its dive to Titanic's wreckage. On Thursday, after days of aerial and underwater searches, robotic diving vehicle deployed from the Canadian Navy, the US Navy, now it's been claimed that the debris of the submersible has been found. The Titan submersible is on the seabed about 1,600 feet, 488 meters from the bow of the Titanic. What happened, if you are just tuning in and wondering what actually happened as far as this story is concerned? Let me very quickly give you a refresher. 2 hours after its dive from the mothership, the Titan submersible loses communication and navigation with Titan, the ship. Now, Titan normally takes 8 to 10 hours to reach Titanic wreck and come back. Titan is equipped with only 96 hours of oxygen. After Titan goes dark, the US and the Canadian Navy begin its search operations. The race was against time as the oxygen was running out. 3 days into the search, the sonar picks up a banging noise. 4 days into the search, debris located near the Titanic wreck. The debris matches the Titan hull. Implosion of the submersible has been now confirmed by the authorities. Later, the US Navy said it had picked up acoustic consistent with the implosion. Now, what had Titan gone to observe? Why was Titan there? It's a very, very expensive sport, or at least a sightseeing tour for the richest of the world. Titan had taken 5 people on board to see the wreckage, in fact, of Titanic. The wreck was found 560 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland in Canada. The wreck is located almost 12,500 feet deep in North Atlantic. Just to give you a reference, if you are aware of the Empire State Building in New York, the wreck is as deep as 9 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other. So one on other, it will take 9 Empire State Building to the depth where the Titan is. The deepest a human can dive is just about 1,000 feet. The record was set in 2014. The pressure at 12,500 feet is equal to 6,000 pounds per square inch. So what happened during the Titan implosion? Titan imploded at about 11,500 feet below sea level. Titan likely imploded soon after losing contact with the mothership. If the hull collapses, it moves inwards at the rate of 2,200 feet per second. A complete collapse takes all of 1 millisecond. The human brain can only process stimuli at 25 milliseconds. So the passengers of Titan submersible would have known nothing. A hull collapsed, air likely ignited, and an explosion followed. The human body likely would have incinerated into seconds, turned to ash and dust instantly. That's what happened. That's how those 5 people met their end. Let me very quickly go across to my guest this evening, experts. Dr. Jasper Graham Jones, he's Associate Professor in Mechanical and Marine Engineering, School of Engineering, Computing and Mathematics, Faculty Science and Engineering, is joining us at this moment. We also have Commodore Anil Jay Singh, former submariner, Vice President, Indian Maritime Foundation. Gentlemen, I welcome both of you on the broadcast. I want to start by asking you, just for our viewers, those who don't understand what happens in such depths, Commodore Singh, if for people, those who were so wealthy, those who had all the means at their disposal, because, you are spending $250,000 to be on board this submersible. This didn't seem to be a very sophisticated, or may I say it was a dangerous piece of equipment. It looked like it has been put together using improvised off-the-shelf devices. It was being controlled by a, gamer control. Do you think that the company underestimated the risks?
Well, I would be very surprised if the company underestimated the risk. I would think that somebody as experienced as people operating such vessels, such companies, would be fully aware of the implications of something going wrong. It was perhaps a bit of overconfidence, probably not aware of what the consequences could be, the implications of an emergency happening, and that is why there are lots of flaws in how this whole exercise unfolded. It was very tragic that 5 people lost their lives, but the saving grace was that, as you mentioned, they probably died instantaneously, because otherwise it could have been, had they sunk to the bottom and not been rescued for 3 days or 3.5 days, they would have had a far more painful death. So what obviously has happened is that the boat lost contact. It must have developed a leak in the hull, or there must have been an electrical power failure or something which took it straight to the bottom of the ocean. And on its way to the bottom of the ocean, perhaps at the time it lost contact, the hull must have cracked and imploded, and instantly everything and everybody would have got crushed. And obviously then she has gone and rested at the bottom of the sea. Now this brings to light what has happened. That's very unfortunate. And I think this kind of adventure tourism, don't forget, this is going into the bottom of the ocean. It's not climbing Mount Everest. If you were on land, it's a familiar environment. You know what to expect. There are ways and means of getting to you. The underwater, the depths below the oceans are totally unfamiliar. They are unfamiliar to people like us who spend half our lives there. But notwithstanding that, for somebody who's not trained in it at all, who's just going there for a lark, paid a huge amount of money. I mean, none of them were acknowledged explorers of the deep. They were more tourists who were going to examine and get a thrill of actually seeing the Titanic and getting probably bragging rights subsequently. So I think this whole program, this whole voyage was ill-conceived. Ocean Gate should never have undertaken this voyage.
Right.
This vessel was not designed for humans to be taken on board.
Okay.
It could not be opened from inside. It was bolted from the top. It had no emergency beacon. So it should never have had human beings on board.
Absolutely. Dr. Jones, if you may come in on this, a lot of has been written and spoken about the design of this submersible. It was not certified. Carbon fiber, the company said, was the way forward compared to the other materials which are usually used for deep diving missions like these, or in deep diving vessels of any kind. After having survived a few dives, why do you think it suddenly imploded, sir?
The issue is that with carbon fiber, you have with this craft, you've got a fatigue problem going on. Now, this is going to one dive, it was fine. Going to 25 dives, as they did, then that led to fatigue problems going on. This should have been looking through a class association where you can actually look back at case histories. Additionally to the fact that they didn't actually go through a class, they also didn't do any sorts of testing. Typically, when you have a vehicle every year, it gets tested to see it's safe. They didn't do this. They were running this is the 3rd year that they've been running this, going to these great depths and producing a great stress on the hull. These stresses are leading to what's called delamination failures and fatigue failures. And what can happen is, in the first dive, you get one little crack. As they go on, they start getting greater and greater and greater. And these cracks start becoming to a point where it becomes a catastrophic failure. So it was going to fail, and they have been warned about this. They've been warned about it with an Institute of Non-Destructive Testing in America. It's been warned about it through many other people. What they actually said is that they should have actually used steel or titanium. This is expensive. And this was actually a problem in actually lifting this craft into the water. What they wanted to do is, by making it out of carbon fiber, it made it lighter and easier to move it around. By making it easier to move it around, you could get more passengers on board.
It's also, it points out, and Dr. Jones, very quickly, if you can tell us, why was it that it was allowed for 3 years? I mean, what kind of loopholes were they able to operate in? It was not that nobody knew about the functioning, or at least the kind of dives that this submersible was making.
Yeah. They were working in international waters. If you are close to India, or if you're close to America or close to England, then you have to be within the territorial waters of the country. But when you're in international waters, as they so far, they were a few hundred miles off the coast. This is international waters, and currently there is no requirement for them to comply with what they say with the rules of the country.
Okay.
And this is where they got around it. They shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have been allowed to get around it. They shouldn't have been allowed to have paying passengers on this and actually eventually kill people. I think there's going to be sort of legal redress later on in the future. That's what I would recommend. They should have done inspections.
Absolutely.
They could have known this.
It's as horrific, as disturbing and terrible this entire story has been. It's also fascinating with the lengths that the people would go possibly for an adventure like this. I would like to discuss this more. There have been other stories. Possibly I can get you back and we can discuss this in further details as well. But thank you, gentlemen, at this moment for joining me on the broadcast.